We all belong to the team of us.
Now joining me on the show is former Ireland and Munster Rugby international Fiona Hayes. Fiona, thank you for joining us.
No worries, Kathleen. Hope you're keeping well.
I'm good. It's great to have you on the show. Rugby on Off the Ball is with thanks to Vodafone, official sponsor of the Irish rugby team. Team of us, everyone in. It's been a bit of a weird few weeks for Irish rugby, Fiona. Obviously, we had the news tonight about the cancellation of Leinster and Ulster. We're optimistic that Connacht and Munster is going to go ahead at the weekend, and we have a nice little banter between me and you here on that one, being the Connacht woman that I am. But I suppose, what does it kind of mean for the teams? Like for Ulster and Leinster, this is obviously another game, once again, that they're not going to get to play. Leinster, listening to Leo Cullen speak during the week, he almost seemed he wanted to get back into games, but I don't know if he'll be entirely upset at the fact that they have a bit more time to prepare and get players back to the sort of level that he would expect them to play.
Yeah, well, that's it. I suppose for Leinster in particular, I mean, you're looking at that Lions game is also cancelled, which would have been, I think, fixed for the 8th of January. So you're looking at maybe the 16th of January, possibly their next fixture, which would be Montpellier at home. So that would be a 5-week gap between games, and that's absolutely massive for those teams. Obviously, COVID hit, obviously you're concentrating on your team and you're hoping everyone's fit and healthy. And obviously safety is a big issue. And I know Leo himself spoke during the week that he had got COVID himself, so that is number one priority, is safety, and that the players are all obviously are going by the guidelines. But just, I suppose it was so disappointing. I mean, that's what we're all waiting for in those big derby weekends. Stephen's Day, I know myself, looking forward to going down to Thomond Park to those big games. But look, it is what it is, and I suppose it's hoping this weekend that we can get to see Connacht and Munster play at least. Yeah,
definitely. And when these players do take to the pitch, obviously it's going to be very difficult for them. They're going to have to, they've had the mental side of everything, the physical side. There is so much to contend with, as you said. Where, though, are they going to fit these games in when it comes to the actual scheduling? I think one of the big things this year is the fact there wouldn't be games during the Six Nations, and that they would try and avoid having that overplay on players. But with them having not played as much, is it even worse to then go into a super packed schedule?
Yeah, you see, there's a lot to look at there. I suppose that was one of the things they wanted to do this year, and have that Six Nations standalone. But I suppose that you could extend it. Then you're looking at a really, really big season. You could extend it into the start of the summer months. At the moment, there definitely isn't enough weekends free for a lot of those fixtures that will need to be refixed. And I suppose as we're going down the line, it's becoming more and more each week. So it's kind of looking at the competition, if they want to keep it in the format that it's in, if they want to change it up, cut it short. I suppose there's a lot of questions to be asked, and I suppose it's only the people at the top that can come up with those answers, really.
We have a text in here from Jeff who says, it looks like our players will be very much undercooked due to lack of game time. Top 14 in France and English Premiership going very much ahead with little cancellations. Do you think that's something that the Irish provinces will be worried about, that they're not getting the same amount of game time as other teams?
Yeah, I suppose that is it's a big factor. I mean, game time is massive, especially around this time of year, because you're getting into those European games after Christmas. You've had a few before, and you want to get your derbies in at home, which are always quite big, competitive, physical games, and you're really focused getting into those European games, which are probably the clinical ones and the ones that are essentially decide where you're going to be in the standing. So, I can understand that comment, and especially I've been watching the Premiership in England, and there's very, very few games being cancelled over in France as well. I suppose you're just looking at here at the minute, the numbers, are outrageous, I suppose, and maybe it's just there could be a couple of camps and it seems to be Ulster and Leinster at the minute that, and it was probably Munster before, but it's hit them, and as I said, safety is first. I'm sure they're training really well and trying to enact games scenarios in training camps, but definitely when it comes to those crunch European ties, you would hope that they aren't undercooked, but game time is massive going into those games.
Yeah, and of course we send our best wishes to anyone that is recovering on the squads or that possibly has COVID at the moment. But looking ahead, we might as well enjoy the fact that we do actually have a game, and especially since, like you said, the provincial games around this time of year are always some of the most fun. I know, I had many an exciting Christmas day opening up tickets to go see matches with my dad in the RDS or wherever it might be. Connacht and Munster, last time they played in October, it was very close. The teams are right beside each other in the table at the moment, but obviously with Munster, with those games in hand, are we looking at a close affair?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be an absolute belter of a game, to be honest. You have Paul Boyle coming back from injury and Matt Hansen if selected. And I mean, they're two players when on form that can absolutely turn a game upside down. And, you know, I know there's talk during the week about Jack Carty's fitness. Obviously, he will be a massive loss to Connacht, but I'm excited to see if he's playing. I'm excited to see that Jack Carty, Ben Healy duel come up. It's something I've been looking forward to watching. With Joey injured at the minute, I'm sure Ben will get the nod to start, so it could be quite a great encounter to watch at 10.
Yeah, I think it's particularly interesting, like selection choice wise from Munster, because I know Stephen Larkin was saying during the week that because of the COVID cases they have, they're looking to kind of maybe swap up the selection, get the lads who have been in isolation and haven't been playing as much, a bit more game time than what they maybe have had. So can we expect some surprises out of this Munster team?
Yeah, I think maybe. I mean, they are going to change it up. I mean, you're not going to get the surprises that you got for the Wasps game. I suppose there was, you know, reasons behind that. But I definitely think there'll be a change up. It won't be like, as we say, a fully loaded squad. They have to try and get lads, as they said, game time, that have been in isolation, that haven't been doing anything, and probably are back on the training ground for the last week and a half or 2 weeks maybe. And, you know, you will see some people in there. But you know what? It's going to be a very, very strong team. I think what that's put out there anyway, and it's going to be similar with Connacht. I mean, these are the games the lads are waiting for. It's the local derbies, it's the big rivalry, and this is definitely a massive game for Ulster, especially the way with the style of rugby Connacht are playing at the minute.
Yeah, and obviously every time Connacht go to Galway, so it always tends to be a good match, especially if you get some of the European teams coming in who aren't quite used to that westerly gale that blows in. But Munster have been there many times before. It's not going to be a full capacity stadium as well. Do you think things like that will affect Connacht's performance on the night and maybe not give them the same sort of advantage that they would normally hope to get from playing there?
Definitely. I mean, the Connacht supporters are absolutely amazing. I remember years ago, it used to be since Stephen's Day, it used to be you'd go between Thomond Park, and it used to be a Connacht Munster fixture. It used to go vice versa every weekend, and I'd go down on Stephen's Day down to the sports ground, and it would be absolutely belting. And I pitied any player, because the Connacht crowd really got behind, you know, their players, and you know, it's a hard place to play. And I think especially that wind loves to shine when they're playing a Munster team anyway, because every game I've even played in or been witness to, that wind absolutely picks up the minute Munster are on the ball.
It really does. And I think the thing we've seen with Connacht, they come so close so many times and always fail to just get over the line, or they'll just let it go at the last moment. What play would you like to see from them at the weekend to ensure, well, I suppose as a Munster one, we probably don't want to see them actually manage that, but what do Connacht need to do to make sure that they don't let it slip from their grasp like they have so many times before?
I think from watching them the last game, Kathleen, I think they really, really need to tighten up that scrum. We saw a scrum time. I know Leicester made some changes and brought on the big guns, but we really saw that scrum come under massive pressure. And I suppose from watching them, they had played such a great first half, and the minute that set piece started to fail, that's when everything else goes around them started to kind of go out the window. And we just saw the performance maybe take a bit of a dip after that, because we know when you're going back in a scrum or you're giving away penalties, it's very disheartening for the team, you know, and you have to obviously get the head up and play. So I think if they can sort out their scrum issues, and which I'm sure they will, they'll tweak a few things. You know, you obviously have referees who will have different interpretations of the law at scrum time as well, so they'll be looking at that as well. But I definitely think the scrum is one area where from the last game they'll be looking, and they'll be trying to put a big mark down in that Munster front row.
Yeah, you mentioned Jack Carty earlier, and obviously we still don't know if he's going to be able to play. He was massive for Connacht whenever they did play Munster the last time around. I think he scored 13 out of the 18 points on the evening. What is it that makes him such a special player for Connacht, and what is it that they will miss from him at the weekend if he can't play?
Yeah, I suppose I talked about this before. It's almost like he's always been a special player, but what he's brought now to this Connacht team is that leadership. And I mean, that's really exciting. He got obviously the captain, he took over that captaincy, and it's making him sparkle as a player. He's confident, he's shouting his forwards, he's got everyone in place, he's got everyone working with him, and you know, he's really building up whatever centre partnership are there. You know, you see a change. You know, you've had Bundy and Sammy Arnold in there at times, and different players will be coming in and out, but he seems to be able to put them on the front foot and get go forward ball. He uses his centres, I think, exceptionally well, but he also really knows how to go to width, and I suppose their strike playoff set piece is absolutely phenomenal at the minute, and he's the one orchestrated that. His body language, his lines are running, he's putting people into holes. So I think he's just playing as a confident player, and I suppose that leadership has made him very confident this season.
Yeah, I'd say Munster will be hoping that he won't be available, but we shall see when the team news comes out. We said earlier that we think this is going to be a close tie, considering how the teams are playing. Of course, you can never tell, especially with the way the season has gone in terms of fixtures and stuff. For you, who do you think has the firepower to just pip it?
I'm a Munster woman, I'm going to have to say I think Munster.
How did I know?
Might just pip it on the day. You know what? They had a big performance over in Wasps. Maybe at Thomond Park, people thought that they weren't quite as creative. So I think they're going to really go out and really try and show if they can in that wind, obviously, and really try and show their backline attack. I think in this game we're really going to see Stephen Larkham's influence, and I feel like they'll really front up with the forwards. But I think it's going to be a really good game for the backline for Munster this weekend.
The Munster team's certainly not unfamiliar with playing in a bit of wind, so I'm sure they'll be well able to handle it. You mentioned earlier about doing that kind of round of the matches around Christmas time. Are there any particular matches that kind of stuck out to you from this time of year, ones that whenever it does come around you think back fondly on?
I'd always have a few drinks around Christmas time, so I don't know, do I think about it that? But no, look, every game, it's not even, it's just getting, I live beside Thomond Park, so it's getting up after Christmas, going up with my dad. We go up before the game, we have a couple of pints, and we go in and we watch the match. So it's those home games I absolutely love, because I get to bring him, and he loves it as well, and I suppose he's getting older now, so it's something that I love to cling to, that I can take him every year still.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people around the country who would feel similarly. I know I've had some of my best rugby memories have always been from around this time of year, going with my dad to matches. So hopefully full capacity crowds will return soon, and we'll all be back to enjoying the Christmas spirit around matches. One other thing I wanted to ask you about, Fiona, was at the weekend we saw the double header at Twickenham of Harlequins, women and men, taking part. It's something that they have done, but it's the first time we've actually seen a Premier 15s, which is the top women's rugby league in England, take place in Twickenham. So obviously a very important thing. I think there was a crowd close over 9,000, which they think is a record for the Premier 15s. We love to see it, but I think anyone who watched it was on BT Sport was quite shocked to see the Harlequins players come out in quite ill-fitting jerseys. It was reminiscent of a few years ago when kit wasn't made for women, where they were always training in jerseys that were either too big or looked like dresses on them, and I think there was a lot of shock and kind of anger around, and Adidas came out afterwards and said that they'd made one kit for the day for both men and women, so it was a one size fit all. It was kind of what they were saying, but obviously you're not going to see Joe Marler lining up in a jersey that also fits Rachel Burford, and I think it was interesting because Harlequins have been a team that have quite led the way for a long time in terms of actually having the women's team, and obviously we know like the England international team is one of the world leaders when it comes to being progressive. So what were your thoughts when you saw the team coming out in those jerseys?
Yeah, I suppose the first thing was, oh my God, we mightn't even be talking about it as much if it wasn't for the colour. It was the most putrid looking green I've ever seen in my life. So the first thing I thought was, oh my God, but obviously the men wore the same colour as well. Look, we know that rugby is getting, is I suppose what I'm trying to say is we would have worn those jerseys back in the day, those swinging jerseys. You never even thought about it. But as you look back in videos of yourself, well, not me in particular, because I was quite slow, but I'm sure there's people, wingers, that look back and they would have been caught by the jersey hanging out the back. So it is something essential in the game now that you can have a jersey that's tight, because obviously, like, when you're running down that wing or you're making breaks, you want as little to be stopped as possible. So it's definitely something, you know, when I saw them coming out, I thought they were really big on the girls. I didn't think about it as much, to be honest with you, because I got enthroned in the game. I thought it was an exceptional game of rugby. I really enjoyed it. But afterwards, then when I was having a look on Twitter and stuff, I know a lot of people were kind of upset about it, and it's exactly that. I suppose this was a grand show. They did the fireworks, they did everything. It was a brilliant stage being in Twickenham. And then to just go out there with, I suppose, jerseys that were too big and made for guys, it just didn't make sense. But it seemed to be just an error. And I suppose they are going to look at it, and hopefully going forward, it won't happen again, because it was an absolutely great spectacle to the start of the game. I loved it. I think they spoke to Rachel Burford afterwards about it as well. And she just said, look, she'd wear anything with a Harlequins crest on it. And that just shows how much she loves the club and how much she wants to play, but she shouldn't have to answer those questions after a game, you know.
That's the thing that I found interesting about Rachel Burford's comments, because I think she said after the game that, you know, it is what it is. She just kind of wanted to talk about the match, and I do understand that. But I suppose with Harlequins being the trailblazers they are, and everything we've seen happen here in Ireland the last couple of weeks, probably going on months at this stage, time kind of doesn't mean anything. But with what our women have gone through, is there an opportunity there for her to turn around and just say, look, it wasn't good enough? With other teams in mind, and the fact that they are a leading light for being progressive and giving their women what I know that Harlequins have said that for the next time around they are going to look at getting a women's specific provider, which is good. But like you said, she shouldn't have to answer those questions. But did she miss an opportunity to kind of say it wasn't good enough?
I don't think so. I think because I'm a similar type of character. I think you know, she's just come off playing a big game. They had a big win. Her adrenaline was flowing. She trusts her rugby club. She loves her rugby club. Obviously, there was errors made, which I suppose she's like, I'll go back to my club and question it rather than say it publicly on telly. So I presume from her kind of perspective, she's on a high. She had a great win. She wants to talk about the game. She doesn't want to talk about anything like that. Obviously, it's not a correct thing to have witnessed, especially on BT Sports covering it and everything. But I think she was correct. I think she wanted to say, look, let's talk about the game. She, you know, other people will view this and other people will talk about this, but she wanted to look at her performance and her team's performance. And I think that's a good leadership and a good captain as well.
Definitely. And we should also just comment on the match as well, because that is of importance. So obviously 29-5 against Wasps. It was a great match. Harlequins dominated for the whole thing. There was no point in it where you were really too worried that Wasps were going to come back at them.
Yeah, to be honest with you, Kathleen, I thought Wasps were actually very, very good in that first half, but their set piece let them down. They were killed in the scrum at times, and their line out was overthrown. I don't know if that's lift or jump. And it just, watching that game, you know, because obviously I'm coaching over here in Ireland, and we view the Premiership as the highest standard of ladies rugby at the minute, club wise, when you're looking at things. And I just looked at the Wasps set piece, and I thought everything about their play outside of that was so skillful, and their 10 Meg Jones was absolutely outstanding, but on the day they just couldn't seem to nail a set piece, and that's where they got caught out, because they couldn't get the points on the board. And then obviously Abby Dow, the winger for Harlequins, their whole back three were absolutely exceptional. Jess Breach, brilliant try. So, you know, it just goes to show, if you can't punish when you're in the opponent's 22, which they were for a lot of the first half, and then, you know, when you see someone just break maybe outside their 22 and run the length of the pitch and score a try, it can be quite disheartening. So I think it just nailed to me that you know, set piece is key, and that Wasps maybe on the day didn't have it all their way, because it wasn't working out for them on the day at all.
And looking at the league as it stands, who are you fancying for the title?
I think I'm liking Bristol Bears at the minute. I know, you know, they've got a new coach and staff on. I know a couple of Harlequins girls had actually moved up and played in Bristol. I think one of the Bristol Bears, Leanne Riley's gone, who's absolutely an amazing nine. One of the Bristol Bears' husband, actually, girls that Harlequins girl's husband took over the head coach role. So a couple went up with they're top of the league now, but they're actually playing really exciting rugby. I think Pat Lamb is involved in overseeing a few things down there as well with the women's side. So I think they're quite, they could be one this year. I know they're top of the league, but they were obviously near the bottom last year, but they could actually come out and win it. A lot of people will be thinking the same old Harlequins, Saracens, but I think when it comes to semi-final, final time, they actually could stick in there and get the win and be a shock this year.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Fiona. I hope that, maybe the result will go your way at the weekend. I will certainly be watching with interest, and I might come back to you on Monday when it's all over.
No worries at all. Great chatting to you, Kathleen. Have a good one. Up Munster.
That was Fiona Hayes there reviewing Connacht versus Munster, which is going ahead at the weekend. Leinster and Ulster cancelled, as we heard earlier in our news round wrap. Coming up for the next 2 hours, Joe Malloy will be along to bring you through some of our off the ball best bits from 2021. Between 8 to 9 p.m, we'll hear from Rachel Blackmore as she speaks to Ger Gilroy just days after making her remarkable performance at this year's Cheltenham Festival. And we'll also have Brian O'Driscoll giving his reaction to Ireland's incredible win against the All Blacks during the November internationals. Then in the 9 o'clock hour, we'll be turning to football as Joe talks to Paul McShane, a recent returnee to Manchester United, but now as a player coach for the club's under-21 side. That will be followed by Gabriel Carty speaking to the show following this year's Euro 2020 final that saw Italy come out on top via penalties, but I suppose most significantly saw those chaotic scenes that we are still hearing about to this day, and with all the reviews that are ongoing among spectators at the stands becoming rammed, and also the COVID protocols that were ignored. That all coming up for you over the next 2 hours here on Off the Ball.
I don't know, I've always had